we're going to hop into it here. So this is our fourth and final meeting. We're looking for your feedback here. So we're going to high-level overview the material that we presented at meetings 1 through 3. All right, I'm not going to be very in-depth on these things, on these issues, but we have our videos from meetings 1, 2, and 3 that you can reference if you need a deeper explanation. All right. All right, so tonight's topics here, we're going to lead off by talking about district-wide capital maintenance needs. We're going to review all elementary, middle, and high school ideas and projects that we proposed and brought to you. We'll talk about our tax implications potentially with a certain number of magnitude of projects. The history of one of the referenda, that small 8.5 by 11 sheet here shows you that. We'll go through that very quickly. We're going to show you the last time we went to a referendum, the community survey that we provided and what those results look like, so you can kind of see what's the next step of all of this. And then we're going to ask for your feedback here. Okay, we're going to stop twice. Ask 3 questions total, and we'll keep going here. So again, we started this process almost 3 years ago now. We had a number of needs that we identified in career technical education spaces. We lost some 4K community partners. We have outdated small classroom spaces at Parkview Middle School. Before we said, let's just focus on those things, we said, let's put all buildings on the table, let's look at all ideas at all buildings, and let's go from there. And we'll see where this takes us. So the goal of the study when we engage in this long-range facility plan was to review all facilities, look at all options, and identify things that would meet our facility needs and our demands for the next 20 to 30 years. Our timeline, so we're pretty much checking off the first one there. April and May, we have these 4 meetings, and thank all of you for coming to these. Some of you, this might be your first, this might be your 4th. Thank you for coming. We will take more feedback that we provided and will provide to us tonight, and the school board will review that information in the summer months and reevaluate and consider what feedback we are getting. In September or October, if the school board feels that the community seems to support certain projects, we will likely do a district-wide community survey and let the whole community have a chance to participate. You'll see an example of that. And after the school board receives that community survey, we'll have some decisions to make. All right, so goals for what we are looking for you. Help us identify issues and solutions we haven't considered. Confirm our needs, see if you agree with what we're proposing, and then give us feedback. The school board and the administration. All right, so we're going to talk about capital improvements, our basic building needs, our roofs, our parking lots, things of that nature. We have a 10-year plan. We'll show it to you on the next page. We review this every year. We review it with the school board. We just recently did this back in February. We have $30 million of needs identified within this plan over the next 10 years. Some are immediate, some are emerging, and some are down the road in the future. But we always have a comprehensive plan to say, what are our needs? Where are we going? What's coming up on the docket here? What are we going to pay attention to here? We initiate projects based on, is there an immediate need? So one thing you'll hear from us is that this school year has a roof that costs $1.9 million, and we know that we do need to fix that soon. So we have to find a way to make that happen one way or another. So you can see these are the areas that facility plan, a district-wide capital maintenance plan is going to look at all these various trade areas, because these are the things that are required to keep a building running well. This is a snapshot of our long-range plan, so you can see that on the left-hand side we have all our buildings, and then we have a number of years there, and we're projecting out certain projects at certain dollar values, including inflation. The longer down we defer certain projects, the more that it costs. Now, I said we have $30 million of projects. Some of these projects would be awesome to have, some are must-haves. So LED lighting in all of our schools would be a way to get better lights, a brighter classroom is certainly desired. But do we have to have that? No. Would it be great to have? Yes. So we always weigh the immediate need versus what would be really great to have, and we always try to make it happen, and we have made it happen in this district for a long time. Now, anytime you have capital needs here, there's 2 ways to pay for it. You take it out of your operating budget, we get $10,016 per student, which is one of the lowest amounts in the state, and we can carve out these capital needs for a roof from that, or we can get it via a referendum or community approval. So as we take a quick look at what are our most immediate needs as a district. We have $10.5 billion worth of projects that we have on the screen, and I won't go through each one. Some have more immediate needs than others, but a focal point of this process has been Parkview Middle School. So if we remove those needs at PBMS, on the next screen we whittle that down to $6.2 million. So assuming we were to do a project at the middle school, we can focus on the other schools, and that's what we have remaining. So that's our most immediate needs. But as I said earlier, we have work at Clarendon that we really have to address, and referendum or no referendum, we have to do that next year. We'll find a way to make it happen if we must. Also, Mukwonago High School over the North Gym, that work has, its time has passed, and we have to start getting ready to make that project happen. So our most cannot wait, these cannot wait projects total $3.7 million. That just gives you an idea of what our capital needs are. All right, so from there we're going to pivot. We're going to go through our building solutions that we reviewed. So we're going to start with capacity analysis. We reviewed each of our buildings to see how much room do we have as we map out every classroom. And we have a capacity of 22 students in first grade classrooms. If we have 3 first grade classrooms, we have a capacity of 66. So as we measure that, building by building, grade by grade, room by room, you can see certain elementary buildings have various degrees of reaching the capacity, some closer to reaching capacity than others. At the middle school and high school, we have capacity at those buildings. So we have space there for the current configurations of 7th and 8th grade at the middle school and the 9th and 12th configuration at the high school. So we're in good shape at those schools at current times. We did a long-range population study. The results of that are that by 2035, we're projected to have almost 2,000 additional housing units, which would lead to 355 additional resident students. Most of them at the elementary level, some in the middle school, a small decrease in the high school. Now this isn't guaranteed, but this is our trajectory. Is it going to happen exactly like this? Probably not. But we would be wise to consider this information and to plan accordingly. Okay, you don't want to react to the problem when you already have the problem. You want to see the problem coming and then start to get a strategy. So our strategy at this time is, with our elementary capacity, which should potentially come, we could shift 6th grade to the middle school, which would alleviate our elementary schools. It would also give the opportunity to bring 4K into those buildings as we're already doing at 3 of our schools. We currently at 2, but 3 next year. We'll have it at Big Bend, Prairie View, and next year we'll start here in this building. So we can shift 6th grade to the middle school, and that would solve some of our elementary issues. But a 6th grade shift would put immediate stress on Parkview Middle School. As you saw, there was about room for 230 some odd kids at Parkview Middle School, but there's 356 graders. So there's not enough room in the existing Parkview Middle School to accommodate that many kids. So to brainstorm what we do there, we looked at a number of different concepts. A 6 through 8 concept, 5th through 8, one big 5th through 8, 2 east-west on 5 8s that are smaller in size, and ultimately after looking at all those options, a 6 through 8, one building, near Mukwonago High School, whether we renovate or build new, that would be the best option. For our 6th grade students, currently they're in an elementary setting. You know, those 11, 12-year-old kiddos are riding a bus with a kindergarten student. All right, they'll be riding a bus with a 4K student. Those kids are better situated riding a bus with 7th and 8th graders, taking foreign language classes, getting the academic exposure like 7th and 8th graders currently are. Having co-curricular and athletic opportunities like most kids in Washington County in the 6th grade currently are. So we feel that this would be the best option to pursue if we were to pursue one. This is one option if we were going to renovate Parkview Middle School, renovate and expand. We would have, this is just a basic schematic overview of what that would look like. We would be building this school up 2 levels on the interior of the courtyard and also building out to the north there. The estimated budget for this project was $85 million, approximately $85 million. Again, I'm not going to get into the details. These plans are posted on our facility planning website, but this gives you an idea of could we expand the middle school and make the remaining parts of it like new to alleviate those capital maintenance needs? Yes, we can do that. We did a great job, in my opinion, at the 2016 project at Mukwonago High School, where we turned that building, which opened in 1972, we turned that into a light blue building. So that is an option. Okay? Another option, and we don't have a picture to show you, but on paper we went through and said what would it take to build a new 6, 7, 8 building, how many rooms you need for band, orchestra, special ed, reading, social studies, etc. So we map it all out, figure out the square footage, the cost per square footage, and all the needs. This is estimated to be at $111 million. You can build this either at a new site, which we don't have picked out, we're just looking at options behind the scene, but there is potential that we could also do this on the existing Park Middle School property if we had to. So that is an option. And that, in essence, is the summary of our Park Middle School. All right? I'm going to pivot now and talk about elementary solutions. Again, as we put all ideas on the table, we have 4 kind of categories we look at as we did the study. We look at an all-in concept, which is to say, you have your existing elementary school, what do you need to make it great? This building is an example where we have a cafeteria that's separate from the gym that we're in right now. Not every elementary school has that situation, so it really puts a stress on finite gym. Elementary kids love those places. But we limit them, they still have access, but it just puts certain stressors on the school day when a facility or a certain room is done up for 2 purposes. So we said, all in concept says get a separate gym and cafeteria, get your 4K spaces ready in each building, and then give yourself the opportunity for conference rooms, small group intervention spaces, large group collaboration spaces, special ed spaces. We provide a lot of services to our kids. It's not just teaching, it's like school psychology, social workers, occupational, physical therapists working with our kids. We do a lot of things that I think aren't always in the mind of the public, but we serve a lot of different needs of kids, but those needs require spaces. We're not always doing those things in the classroom. At times, with a lack of space, you're doing these things in a vestibule, in a hallway, or in something that used to be a closet, now it's some small office. We'll go through that quickly, but then we have the reduced scope option. The reduced scope is pulling back at some of those things and saying, let's just address some of the most immediate things with small expansion, not as much as we all in, but we're going to give ourselves room for 4K classroom spaces and do a minimal amount of renovating and expanding spaces. The limited modification for our elementary schools is no expansion, and just taking care of a bare basis to say leave every building as is and try to bring in at least 2 4K classrooms at every one of our schools. And then finally, we did consider a no modifications scenario where we would could we accommodate 4K if 6th grade were to move out? Could we accommodate 4K without doing anything in any buildings? The answer is yes, but it's not preferred. All right. So using Big Bend Elementary as an example, as we've done in previous meetings, this is the all-in concept. This particular building, if we were to expand it, those yellow spaces that you're seeing right there. All right, this is a little bit more detailed. The pink spaces will be renovated spaces. The yellow is expansion. It brings in, again, a separate, for all of our elementary schools that don't have a separate gym, a separate cafeteria, but it's also building out 4K spaces, those individual spaces for those school psychologists, social workers, English language learners, things of that nature, making sure everything is addressed. This is a little bit of an expensive asphalt. This is, for this particular building, $17.1 million. When we look at the all-in concept of all of our buildings, it's a range of $79 to $90 million. So we pulled that back a little bit, and looked at a reduced scope option. So let's just kind of tone that down a little bit here. As you can see, the yellow space is the only new expansion. The floor plan for that is to just add one additional classroom, but to renovate a few other spaces so we have proper size 4K classrooms. The typical classroom for a 6th grade or 5th grade class is going to be 900 square feet. But for the young ones, for 4K and 5K, it's going to be 1,200 square feet with a bathroom. Okay? Not having a bathroom in a space for kids that young could be problematic. So this pulls things back so that price tag at Clarendon, at Big Bend that was $17.1 million. Now 4.7. So we made that smaller, and as we add all this concept concepts up at each building, it's $18.7 million. Now, as we move to the limited modification, it's no expansion, but that dark gray area there is essentially taking 3 classrooms that are 900 square feet and turning them into 2 1,200 square feet classrooms and adding bathrooms. So it's just doing the bare minimum ultimately to bring 4K in. That isn't just putting them into the vacated 6th grade classrooms as those students may potentially may move on. So this project now is $680,000, which is less than the other 2 options we showed. And I missed a note here. Should have said this before I started. As you listen to these here, we're going to pause and ask you at the end of the review of these options to rank things as a low, medium, and high priority. Okay, so as you think back a little bit to what I talked about in middle school, and what we're talking about these 3 options at the elementary level here, think about what kind of priority you think this is. Okay? So here we have the elementary limited modifications here. So again, this is just creating enough space, enough proper space in our school buildings to bring in 4K and to get those bathrooms. If we went down this path, whether we did the reduced scope or the limited modifications, these plans don't get in the way of those all-in options down the road. So by doing these, you're not cutting yourself off in future projects. You're still giving yourself that chance. All right, so for the elementary concepts, we showed all in, reduced scope, and limited modifications. You can see those price tags on there. To reduce, there's a lot of options. I understand we gave you a ton of options. We're trying to demonstrate we are looking at every option that we can think of and trying to exhaust those options to make sure that we leave no stone unturned. But at this time, I would say that as an administration, we don't think that this is the best option. The all-in option is the best option. Considering all the needs that we have, I think we would boil it down to these 2. So when we move forward here, just a little bit here, you're only going to see these 2 options as we move forward. If you disagree with that, that's fine. Please indicate that on your sheet so as we collect those and analyze that, you can give us that feedback. If you think that's the wrong step, if you think the elementary option is the right step relative to the other needs we're talking about tonight, then please let us know. All right, so now we're going to pivot to the last set of solutions here, then we'll take a pause to talk about the low, medium, and high priorities. So when we did the project at Mukwonago High School, we talked about this a lot at the 3rd meeting with Dustin Lehman, our CTE coordinator. The project worked. Our trades classes are booming, and that's good. The world needs auto mechanics and welders and construction workers. So you can see now we have a new problem. The enrollments went up 250% from where they were prior to the project to where they are now. So in the 17-18 school year, we had kids took 1,848 courses, and now we're up to almost 5,000. 4,600 courses are taken. Our construction/building trades class areas are used 8 out of 8 courses in a day. It is not vacant ever. It's always used. Our autos classes has the same story. In our hospitality/culinary arts classroom, known as the Fork of the Road Culinary Classroom, I'll give you a shout out there, team, thank you for doing that, is used 12 out of 8. We're doubling up classes at times. That's how much demand there is. The next slide here, you can see how by the academic pathway, construction/building, automotive, culinary arts, how many students we're turning away who would like to take those courses but can't because there simply just isn't enough room. Awesome problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. All right, same issue here. We have a pretty good fitness center. This classroom space, again, we have at least 2 classes at all times. You'll find two fine instructors in this space, at least 2 each period of the day. It never sits vacant, so it has over 200% utilization. It's used during the school day, after school, January through May. There's between 30 and 100 4th through 8th grade students that are using this space. And then come the summer months, Indian Athletic Performance takes place, which is one of our highest enrolled, I believe it's our highest enrolled summer school course. 570 students took that last year in grades 5 through 12. So this space is one of the most stressed out, utilized spaces in all of our school district. Again, just to demonstrate that for those of you who weren't at the last meeting, this picture is worth 1,000 words. It speaks for itself. It's used like this continuously, almost each minute of the day. A couple examples of some forward-thinking school districts who have the same issue, address that issue. So you see Bayport on the left and Kimberly High School on the right, who address their weight rooms. Ours is about 6,500 square feet. These are examples of 10,000 square foot facilities that can accommodate a growing demand. Likewise, again, going back to the 2016 referendum we did at Mukwonago High School, you can see a picture of the South Gym. It used to have a surface similar to what we're seeing right now, but when we renovated that floor needed to be renovated, so we said rather than replacing the same identical style floor, we put in a turf. And that facility is now on full demand. It is booked 7 days a week in the cold winter and wet spring months, from after school till 9 p.m. every day, weekends included. The community has really liked this. The students like this, so it's a kind of a win-win for the kids and for the community. Here's a before and after picture. Before we had this facility available, we have a picture on the left of kids playing soccer in Parkview Middle School. Could they do it? Sure, they're tough kids. I'm sure they can find a way to play a soccer game. But it's indeed a much better experience for everybody here when they're playing on the turf. So here, recently, there was a survey that was issued by the village a long ago, and they have a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that's updated about every 5 years. And within this plan, they asked a number of questions. What would you like? What amenities, what outdoor recreation facilities do you think the community should have? The people answered the questions and there was a lot of feedback that was provided. The respondents are divided there in the lower left between just those who are Village of Mukwonago residents, and as we all know, the Village of Mukwonago kind of serves as a central hub to the school district in a sense as the town of Mukwonago and other, it's really the centerpiece geographically speaking. So there's a number of other respondents, but the village residents, when they said, what are the top 3 priorities that you would like to exceed within the district, or excuse me, within the community, are lake and shoreline restoration, that would be nice, an indoor athletic complex and snowmobile trails. Considering all respondents, there's outdoor pool and splash pad, beach/lake access, and an indoor athletic complex. So we didn't ask this question. We found this information through the village of Mukwonago, and the people spoke, and this was a common theme. There was 30 or 40 or perhaps even 50 requests that were put out there. So these are the ones that are rising to the top. So it seems to an extent to coincide with what we're talking about here. So to give you a couple examples of other school districts that have responded to a demand in their community, we have Elkhorn, which is one of our neighbors just to the south, and Kimberly High School. So they built indoor facilities that have, about 60 yards of indoor space, gives them a wide variety of opportunities to do marching band, to do, a number of sports, soccer, baseball, football, name it, they can go in there. Elkhorn uses theirs with the Walpole County Sheriffs to do training, high-risk traffic stops. They find ways for the community to utilize it in a number of different ways. And the communities that have built these have said nothing but good things about them. So there is that good positive impact when they have them. All right, just a couple more slides and then we'll pause. So then, as we put all ideas on the table, our baseball fields and softball fields for our boys and girls at the high school level. They have a traditional baseball surface, which when we were in a spring baseball state, that worked just fine. I don't know why, but baseball was moved from spring to summer, from summer to spring. I spoke there, I apologize. And that can create for wet conditions. It gets dark out earlier. Kind of hard to play baseball when you have those conditions there. So as an option, you're seeing other school districts, and Whitewater High School is an example here, of providing a turf baseball field. The one on the right has a full turf outfield, turf infield, and turf wings, which are just outside the foul lines. The one on the left there is not a turf outfield, it's just a turf infield and turf wings. So there's school districts that do it both ways for their baseball and softball fields for whatever might meet their needs. All right. So I'm going to pass this real quickly to Clint. So Clint's going to talk about the concepts at Mukwonago High School. So we talked about our needs between career and technical education needs, so on and so forth. So he's going to explain some of the concepts that we have in front of us.
Good evening. I'll click off this one pretty quickly, but we just want to kind of show from a site plan perspective. Again, the high school site is pretty tight. There's quite a bit of facility on that site, and a large part of the last project we tried to solve a lot of site issues, drop-off pickup, and specifically kind of the bus drop-off situation, which is accommodated along here. So again, kind of the buses come in and then filter back out. As part of the gym expansion to the west here, we did add some parking beyond. So one of the big parts of this master planning study was to take a look and see if we could fit that indoor facility on the site. So the addition that we're showing is the yellow box here, which would be the indoor facility along with the weight and fitness facility. Another really important thing for the district was to still maintain the ability to access around the building for emergencies and just general maintenance and service purposes. And so we believe we'll be able to still accomplish that with very minimal impact or no impact to the baseball, softball fields, and just some minimal impact that we'll have to address with the stormwater facility back there. So as we look at the plan here, again, just to sort of orient you, the new auditorium was built out in front. Again, this is the new gymnasium. And then this is the space that Tom was mentioning was converted to turf last time. So again, the idea is we would build the new indoor facility here, the new weight room facility, so that frees up the opportunity to convert the existing weight room into some additional classroom spaces for the interior of the school. And it opens up this space to be utilized for another purpose. So the idea right now is this would be ideally suited for the autos program to be moved into there. The last time we did this project, we did not touch the autos area. So by moving autos over to this location, it frees up their current space for the expansion of the metals and woods into that area. So let's talk, I think at the last meeting was talked a little bit about we just build autos. Sure, again, from a prioritization perspective, you could probably look at that. Maybe if there wasn't support for the indoor turf, we could kind of revisit it. But again, in terms of kind of the organization, where parts and pieces go, we really were kind of trying to avoid additions in this area of the building, again, to preserve a site situation that's working pretty well for the district and not interrupt or disrupt that. Again, kind of the final area of improvement would be to expand the culinary space so that we are, again, not having double classrooms within that space.
All right. So we're going to pause there now, and on that bigger piece of paper that you have in front of you there, we're going to go to breakout session number 1. All right, so if you look at those multicolored areas there on the right-hand side, you have the middle school, the elementary schools, the high schools, and capital improvements. Let's take 5 minutes or so to assign a high, medium, or low priority for each of those projects. So simply put, just work through that, talk amongst yourselves, and then we'll pause and we'll go to the next breakout session. Go ahead and assign high, medium, and low from those ideas. And if you have questions, just put your hand up and come around and talk to you guys and do that. Go ahead. All right, guys, we're going to move forward here right now to the next breakout right away. So we're going to ask some more questions here.
Played it.
All right, so breakout number 2. All right, so here we go. I'm going to ask you guys to say that same part of your page there and move to the right-hand side of those colored areas. So you'll see that there's a column that says ranking. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to rank projects 1 through 6. Now before you begin, we're we're going to ask you to only put one number per colored section. So as you take a look at your paper, you have two options for the middle school. Only choose one of those. So don't put a number, call one number 3 and the other number 5. Just one number per color. So you have 6 colors. 1 is the highest priority, 6 would be the lowest. So as an example here on the screen, this is a hypothetical. I started with the middle school. I chose one of the boxes. I moved on to the elementary, and I could have moved to any area here in this example. I could have set the next priority in the high school. But in this hypothetical, I went to the elementary, and I chose one of those orange ink boxes there. Then there's the remaining 4 colors. I have 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you please do likewise. Place the 1 next to the highest priority as you see here. 1 number per color. I'll give you guys some minutes to do that.
Well, 1 through 6. I see that.
All right, everybody, here we go. We'll proceed here and hit the home stretch. So we have one last piece of this presentation right now. We have one last question that we're going to ask you before we go over. We're going to give you some background and details here right now. So on your table here, you have a single-page handout that's smaller on the yellow line. It's a history of the referendum that took place here in our school district. Our school district has been within its current shape since 1972. Prior to that, it was a union school district that had collectively a bunch of small K-8s that had their own superintendent and school board that would all feed into the 912 Union High School, which had its own superintendent and school board. Back in 1972, it was consolidated into one school district with one school board, one superintendent, and one philosophy. So from that point going forward, you can see that over the last 51 years of this school district's existence, there have been 22 referendum questions that have been asked. 10 have passed, 12 have failed, 7 out of the last 8 have passed. With 22 questions, I think over a 50-year period, I've been here for 7 years, so I haven't been here this whole time, but I think that this community has, the school district has only asked a question when there's really been a need. So, as we move forward then, look at the last referendum that took place in 2016. As I mentioned earlier, there was a survey that was issued there in the fall of 2015. All residents in the district had a survey that was mailed to them, a paper survey that was mailed, but there were online options available, and there were just short of 2,800 responses from community members. And at the end of it, 76 of all respondents advised the school board to pursue a referendum to update MHS. That was the focal point of that particular project. So just to kind of give you some information, what did that survey look like and what did it reveal? First thing, they asked questions about the respondent's age. Are they an employee of the district? Do they have children in the district? And what city, township, village do you live in? So this is just a snapshot of those respondents and where they live. You got town of Guano on the left, town of Ottawa on the right. And it just helps as you look at the feedback as to what kind of feedback are you getting and from whom. Okay? So there were various components to the Mukwonago High School project. There was expanding the library, the cafeteria, renovating existing classroom spaces, a West Gym, a PAC. There was a lot of stuff going on in that project, but each component was asked a particular question. So for an example here, the question is how likely would you be to support a plan to expand the high school cafeteria? As we discussed at the last meeting, the lack of cafeteria space only allowed for our high school students to take 7 classes a day. Whereas what you'll typically find everywhere else, especially in Washington County, is that students are taking 8 classes a day. So that's 1 extra course per year. You know, over 4 years, you're getting 4 more credits, exposed to 4 more things in your academic high school career. So you can see in this example here, you have somewhat very likely, somewhat likely, not likely, and undecided on the right. So you can see that from the all residents in the blue, staff residents in red, the parent residents in green, and the non-parent, non-staff residents, those who don't work in the district or don't have kids in the district, you're looking to say how do each of these segments ultimately respond to this question. And obviously, like anything else, you want to have great support for any of these projects. The more the community is behind something, the better support there obviously is. All right, so whatever we decide here, again, this is all community driven. Every school district, if it's not, it should be community driven. That's the main step that we're taking here tonight. In this past survey, as it was community driven, which would be the next step of this process potentially, is I'll show two questions here to show how the community will weigh in and ultimately dictate where something will go. This question here is, how likely would you be to support a plan to add a high school gym and locker rooms? So as we take a look at that on the far left, the very likelies, there's 44% of all residents. So if I'm just pointing here at my clicker, this here, of all residents, 44% support, 24 are somewhat likely to support. So when you add those two up, that is 68%. That's a good number. There seems to be community support for a gym with locker rooms. Here's the same question, just slightly expanded. How likely would you be to support a plan to expand the high school gym project to include an indoor track and a fourth basketball court? Well, now we see things are changing a little bit. The very likelies are down to 29, and some likelies are at 18. So that is now down 147%. And any type of vote, that's not the number we want, right? Okay. So that's how a survey can ultimately inform this. So as the results of this particular survey here, I'll wrap this up with the next couple slides here. Would you support? So as you ask, the respondents for all the projects at the specific dollar values, would you support this? As you look at all this stuff, it is ultimately wrapped up with a couple questions here at the very end. First one is, would you support a $49.5 million referendum for the conceptual plan? This represents a tax increase of approximately $38 for each $100,000 of property value. By the way, this was only $5 increase per property value when we looked at it in hindsight. But when you project, you do the best you can. You don't have all the facts, you make a lot of assumptions, but you don't want to tell people one thing and then it's another. That doesn't build trust. But within this question here, 66% of all respondents within this particular question said definitely yes or probably yes. Looking at the second question, would you support a $55.7 million project for the conceptual plan as described above with the addition of the forecourt gym and indoor track? Okay, this has a pay mill rate increase of $53 per $100,000 of property value. And here you can see that the definitely yes or probably yes is diminished. So that's where you are informed as to what to do or what not. Okay, that's how a survey works. That's how voting works. All right. So the results here of the survey are summed up here. 80% support for expanding the cafeteria, 70% support for updating the high school library, 73% support of moving the front office to the front of MHS to improve safety and security, 82% support to upgrade infrastructure by replacing systems that have reached end of life, capital maintenance needs, HVAC units, certain parts of the roof that were due at that time, 80% community support to renovate the STEM or CTE areas, 71% support to improve class sizes, technology, lighting, and just general classroom improvement. 71% to build a new auditorium, and 68% support to build the three-court West gym that we now have. So that's how that survey worked and informed the district as to what to do or what not to do. So to talk about, as we hit the very last part of all this, I said 7 o'clock, and I think we might get there, guys. All right, current tax impacts. All right, so at the end of the day, everything we're talking about, you might support it, but at what dollar value are we comfortable doing something? I'm going to talk about operating tax levy and then our referendum tax levy. When you add it all up, that's what shows up on your property tax bill, but I'm going to just walk you through each of those gets there. When we talk about our operating tax levy funds the basics. Okay, it turns on the lights, it gives us paper, pay for our teachers, okay, parking lots, etc. We get $10,016 per student here. We multiply that by our number of students here, and we get a $46.6 million operating budget. That defines 85% of all the operating dollars. All school districts have different amounts, and this has been that way for 30 years. If you want to know why, come see me after this presentation, because I don't want to keep you here over 8 o'clock. But Franklin has 11,488, New Berlin 11,659. They have about 300 less students and $3.3 and $3.6 million more. It's not just this current school year. It's been this way for 30 years, going on 31. So we are a low revenue school district. That $10,016 is basically tied for last. $10,000 is the least amount that we are allowed to. If the school board wanted to levy for less, they couldn't. It's recognized that it costs money to educate students 8 hours a day, 10 months a year. So ultimately, our operating tax levy is $21.3 million this current school year. It pays for our general education and special education and basic building needs. That $21.3 is a $4.51 mill rate. Okay, so for every $100,000 of the household, for every $1,000 of the household value, there is a $4.51 impact. How does that rank for an operating tax levy? Dead last. All school K-12 school districts in the area. When we add on the referendum debt, which we have associated with the 2016 Mukwonago High School project, we levy $9.5 million. That mill rate impact is $2.02. So when we add up both of these mill rates, we're still in the bottom 20%, very competitive. Okay? I think I speak for those principals and educators who are in this room, the school board members. We're extremely proud of the results that we get in doing that on a very, very low budget. I think that taxpayers in this community expect that, and we are doing our absolute best to deliver on that end. From a long-term tax strategy, here's where we're at right now. There's a number of bars there. The 3 bars that you're seeing there are 2020, 21, 22, and 22, 23. So this is the current school year. This is our strategy. We're trying to take the overall tax levy down by 0.2% each year, because as you get your tax bills, everybody appreciates a steady tax bill that doesn't have major swings, unless there is a vote that says we approve, a referendum of sorts. The town of Mukwonago passed one for fire and safety needs. The village of Mukwonago likewise. We only control the K-12 portion of it, but this is our strategy at this time. So on the next slide here, basically, as we look at these $31 million values that go down just a little bit each year, that's the same thing, just we're not graph form anymore. Again, if we look back at last year, this year, and going forward, this is kind of how our operating levies and referendum levies have shaken out. This year is my estimation. I'm trying to predict the future, and that's hard to do. If you know someone that's better than me, I want to talk to that guy or girl. But I believe our operating levy is going to be here, which then we can add our referendum levy, which is going to give us a 0.2% decrease. Okay? And as we move forward then, if this is what we do this fall, just like when you have a car payment or a house payment, you want to say, what can we afford? What can we afford each month or each year? So once we set that value, the idea of what I'm going to show you in the next slide is let's lock it at that value and move forward, and let's not increase that as a baseline scenario. Let's not increase the referendum debt limit. So if it's $8 million, community, do you support that going forward and just extending your current commitment levels that they're currently at? As you saw earlier with the mill rates, that commitment level is one of the lower ones in the area and in the state. So I'm going to show you a range of values here, but right now, this is where I think it's going to land. So if I want to create a range of values because I don't want to say specifics because, again, I can't predict how the state biennial budget is going to play out. How are all these other factors going to play out? I don't know. But with that being said, if we levy $8 million in the 2023 referendum tax levy, then in 2024, we do a referendum and say, let's keep that $8 million value for 20 more years. We could do $89.5 million of work for no increase in the tax levy. $8 million each year going forward. If this next fall happens to be $7 million, okay, then we have a smaller amount of $7 million this year, later this fall, and then for another 20 years thereafter. If somehow we have, a low operating tax levy, and therefore we can push our referendum tax levy up, now we can do $103 million worth of work. The more state support we get for the operating tax levy being low, the greater impact you can have, or support potentially for capital needs. So these are a range of values between 76 million and 103 million that we could potentially do next spring through a vote if there's support without increasing the tax levy, the revenue tax levy. To push that up just a little bit, if we say, all right, what if we want to go beyond 103 million? Let's say we have this $130 million project and we're going to try to knock out a lot of things because perhaps maybe the time is right, that's the way the community feels. So if we levied 7, 8, or 9 million this fall, and in 2024 did a $130 million referendum, we have a range of values that would impact per 100,000 of a household's value. Okay, so if you have a $300,000 house, all right, and we decide to go down this path, you have 3 sets of 100,000, so it's 3 times that. There would be a $210 annual impact. All right, so this is the range of values of impact if we did a project of this scope. Last slide then. If we did a project in the magnitude of 150 million, here is the impact, the range of impacts there per $100,000 of your household's value. So you got to do the math on your own there, like what does that mean to me? There you have those values. All right, on the last breakout here, we're going to ask you to go back to your sheet and on the bottom here, breakout session number 2. We're going to ask you the question, what is the maximum tax impact you would support based on the project priorities you indicated above? So just choose one. And before you go, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to answer that question, but I just want to, when you're done, you can leave your paper there, we will collect it. I just want to pause and say thank you all for taking the time to be here and to be a part of this. A school district's quality is going to determine the community's quality in so many ways. There's a lot of things that go into a great community. It's got to be safe, we need police, you got to have good schools. All these things go into it. But when the quality of the schools are excellent, I think that absolutely can help define a community. And this is a great community to be in. We all are all a part of it, and this is a tremendous thing. Our motto is students, staff, and community building better schools together. Sean, when was this chosen? Do you know, was this before your time?
It was before my time.
Okay. So this saying's been around for a real long time. Sean, holy cow. But I don't think a more proper model could have been chosen. It's embodied by what we have in this room here tonight. So thank you very much. When you're done, you're free to go. Please answer that last question. If you have questions, you'll come on and see me. I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you all for coming.